Early this morning, Ukrainian drones strike deep inside Russia. Waves of attacks targeting the 100-year-old Shatura power station, 75 miles east of Moscow, one of Russia's largest. After repeated rounds of Russian strikes on Ukraine's civilian energy infrastructure that have caused rolling blackouts, Kyiv now responding in kind. And Russia's drone strikes go on. Apartment buildings hit in the eastern Ukrainian city of Dnipro overnight. Hard amid all this to be optimistic about an imminent peace deal.
I want it to come true, but it's unlikely. I really want peace, because we have a little granddaughter. She's 10 years old. She cried so much. She was very scared.
Even for those under fire in Ukraine, much focus on events in Geneva and talks on the 28-point peace plan proposed last week by the United States. First, the Ukrainian delegation, led by President Zelensky's chief of staff, discussed counter-proposals with European officials designed to improve US security guarantees and make changes about territorial concessions. The US Secretary of State leading the American delegation, ignoring questions about President Trump's latest social media attack on Volodymyr Zelensky's supposed zero gratitude for US efforts. He'd also insisted that the plan was US-authored, after some senators said he'd told them it represented a Russian wish list. Both sides hailing important progress made at a briefing during a pause in talks.
So we're working through making some changes, some adjustments, in the hopes of furthering narrowing the differences and getting closer to something that both Ukraine and obviously the United States are very comfortable with. So I think the takeaway from it is, I think this was a very, very meaningful, I would say probably best meeting and day we've had so far in this entire process.
Ukrainian people deserve and want this peace more than anyone in this planet. We thank our big friends, United States and personal President Trump and his team to their commitment to bring this peace.
On the front lines, Ukrainian troops fight on. Just on Friday, their president had said the country faced a choice within days between its main ally and its dignity. For now, it's fighting on the diplomatic front to hold on to both.
Well, earlier I spoke to Gabrielius Landsbergis, Lithuania's former foreign minister, and I began by asking him if the European leaders were right to tiptoe around President Trump.
We're now in the depressing stage of the so-called mediation between Ukraine and Russia. My argument is that, instead of wasting time, actually, trying to figure out whose plan is this, whether it's Putin's or whether it's President Trump's, Europe should have its own plan. But not just, a rewriting of American plan or whatever this on the table, but actual plan that would come from European strength.
Right.
And
so
I think that there is a clear ability to do that, yeah.
Well, does that mean ripping up this deal, which may have been written or at least very heavily influenced by Russia? The EU is trying to amend it currently and has come up with some proposals this afternoon. Will any of them fly, or have they got to just start from scratch, tear up this deal?
No, I mean, the European proposal is on most points is fair. This is what Ukrainians, I believe, would already have agreed upon. The problem is that the Russians will definitely not agree on this, and we'll be back to square one, and probably giving President Trump one more chance to blame it on Ukrainians or on Europeans or on whoever. So, but there are things that Europe can do that would show that Europe is serious. And one of those is, even though it sounds already by now as a cliche, but, just seize the frozen assets, Russian frozen assets. Europe is already in an extremely deep crisis. And it's a crisis not about the trust or ability to do things, but about the existence of Europe. Because we clearly know that Putin, if not stopped in Ukraine, again, we've said that numbers of times, he's going to continue. He's very likely going to continue into the European Union or NATO territory.
How imminent is that prospect of a wider European war that you've just spoken about?
Well, I think that if that deal were to be forced upon Ukraine, the Putin deal, I would call that a Putin pact, that gives legitimacy to his aggression.
Lithuania is first in line for any renewed Russian aggression. How imminent do you think that is? Are we talking years still or months, possibly?
I argue that the most dangerous time starts today. and until the time where Europe is standing on its own 2 feet. And when we're looking in Germany, they're spending plans, right? €500 billion is going to be spent on defense in 5 years. Well, so that gives you an idea of how Putin is thinking as well. In 5 years, Germany is a different country, very much, stronger armed, with renewed abilities to defend itself and its allies. So kind of that provides a window. Now we're not ready. We're not united. We're unable to figure out, how to help Ukraine, and Putin is ready. Right, so, he has already, more than 1 million people army.
Right, so right now he's got a window of opportunity, which he may not have in a few years.
Exactly, because if we continue ramping up our defenses, if Britain steps up, which is, also very many people in our in our parts of the world would do hope, when it comes to the defenses. That really works as a deterrent. That means that Putin knows that in 5 years it would be very much more difficult to invade a European country. Now, he sees and understands the picture, which is favorable to him.
So are you in Lithuania not reassured by point 2 of the plan that pledges a non-aggression agreement between Russia, Ukraine and Europe? Is that not worth the paper it's written on?
Look, there have been pledges. Right? I don't know anybody recalling the Budapest Memorandum, which gave security assurances to Ukraine in 1992. So that means that Ukraine still now possesses the security assurances from the United States, from Russia, and other signatories of the document. So that gives you an idea of how Ukrainians would take any sort of assurances.
Gabrielios Lambergis, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you.